The night train to Blackmoor was never crowded, and tonight was no exception. A handful of passengers settled into their compartments as the train rumbled out of the station. Each passenger carried their demons, but they would soon discover that something far darker rode the train with them. Alice, a young woman fleeing an abusive relationship, clutched a small bag as if it were her lifeline. Seated across from her was Dr. Henry Marshall, a psychiatrist with a penchant for unethical experiments. He was en route to a conference where he planned to unveil his latest controversial findings. Next was Marcus, a gruff and disillusioned war veteran who had seen too much death on the battlefield. In the corner sat Mrs. Winifred Clarke, an elderly widow who spoke to the empty seat beside her as if her deceased husband were still there. Lastly, in the shadows of the dining car, was a mysterious figure dressed in black, whose face remained hidden beneath the hood. As the train sped through the darkness, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Alice started sweating profusely as invisible hands seemed to tighten around her throat. Dr. Marshall's eyes darted nervously. He scribbled frantic notes, haunted by whispers in his ears. Marcus winced in pain, phantom wounds from the war reopening. Mrs. Clarke muttered accelerated conversations with her absent husband, her voice rising to frantic pleas until it became an unsettling shriek. At the strike of midnight, the train entered a tunnel, plunging into total darkness. The lights flickered and finally died, leaving the passengers in pitch black. Panic set in. Alice felt a cold breath on her neck, and she screamed, breaking the silence. The train then jerked violently, sending everyone sprawling. When the lights returned, the mysterious hooded figure was now standing in the center of the car, pointing accusingly at each passenger. "You are all here for a reason," the figure's voice echoed ominously. "This train is your final judgment." Each word made the temperature drop further, frost creeping along the windows. Horrific visions assaulted the passengers. Alice saw the bloody face of her abuser grinning maniacally. Dr. Marshall's notes turned into pages of grotesque illustrations of tormented souls. Marcus was surrounded by the ghosts of comrades he had failed to save, and Mrs. Clarke's seat was suddenly occupied by her rotting husband. In the pandemonium, the train seemed to pick up speed, defying all logic. The walls stretched and warped, transforming the carriage into a labyrinthine nightmare. Desperation drove the passengers to search for an exit, but every door led them back to the same cursed compartment. Moments later, the train shuddered and decelerated, pulling into a station that was neither on the timetable nor on any map.